You do not understand the power of the dark side. Alright, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Ignore the outfit. I'm getting my geekdom on here. And I'm in my basement. That means everybody knows what I'm talking about. Satanism. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking about a very unique form of Satanism. And I'm going to be talking about different forms of Satanism here over the next few weeks. The reason being is, well, got nothing much more to talk about unless you want me to talk about politics all the time. And that gets a little boring. So, what does Star Wars have to do with Satanism? Ironically enough, Star Wars and Satanism actually go quite well hand in hand. It's called Sithism, and it is a variant form, a legitimate variant form, of Satanism. Now, if you look online, you mostly find information about it online, but there is one order, or one group, that sort of teaches you about it in a very comical way. It's called Sith Academy, okay, by the Dark Lords. I have a couple books by them. So, what does this have to do with this? Uniquely enough, Sithism, when you look at its basic tenets and whatnot, be it in the Star Wars universe or in real life as you study it, you find that the actual real tenets of it match up identically to Satanism. This makes it a variant form of Satanism. But what does that even more is when you go to a group like Sith Academy or any of the other online Sith groups, which they're kind of hard to find. You kind of got to go digging for them. They all state that one of their books that they recommend you read is Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. This makes it very interesting because it makes it very obvious that Sithism in real life takes very heavily from Anton LaVey's teachings in its grounding tenets and whatnot. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details about the Sith Academy or the Dark Lord's personal beliefs, because when you start digging into that, it's a little comical, and the logical-minded person will be like, these guys are joking around. But when you actually look at the tenets, the fundamental tenets of Sithism, and everything that goes into what a Sith is, be it the quest for personal power, embracing of an inner darkness and whatnot, you realize that everything lines up. Now, what is Sithism about? Sithism is pretty much just like LaVeyan Satanism, be it atheistic or theistic. Ironically, it fits into both categories, and I'll explain that here in a minute. It takes Satanism and gives it a Star Wars-y twist. Okay? Sithism itself was a reactionary religion in the real world to a few people actually creating a real-life version of Jediism. And they literally call it Jediism, where they take all sorts of Taoist and Buddhist fundamental beliefs, they adapt in sword training and whatnot, and a little bit of witchcraft, just a wee bit, but it's mostly in druidry and whatnot, and apply it to the Jedi Creed, and they add the Jedi Creed to it, and all the fundamentals that are taught in the Jedi concept from the books, from the Legends Universe books, as well as from the movies, the original trilogy and prequel trilogies. And they take all these concepts and they applied it and created a real-life version of a religion based out of Star Wars called Jediism. Well, some crazy Satanists, probably a Levian or whatnot, decided, well, if they're going to be doing this, let's counterbalance it and create Sithism. And they pretty much took all the same notions and principles, but instead of applying, the Buddhist concepts and whatnot, they applied the concepts of Anton LaVey to all the same training methods of like meditation and whatnot, twisted it around, focusing on a person's inner darkness. Literally, this is not a joke. This is how it's described in the literature for Sithism. A person's inner darkness, different types of meditations. Again, applied sword training and whatnot. Nowadays, everybody's running around with these like Force FX lightsabers, ultra sabers, whatnot, and homemade sabers from the custom saber shop. And they're adding in, their Star Wars geekdom into their personal religions of either Jediism or Sithism. And so, this is where we get Sithism. Somebody created it as a reaction to the Jediism, and it actually took off. It's not a very big following. It really is not a big following. You have, the biggest source online is Sith Academy with the Dark Lords, and I'm going to tell you, there's some of the things in this book that they write about is a little comical and story, fantasy, definitely fantasy, but in another way, it can also be smiled at and be like, oh, that's kind of cute. That takes a little bit of the notions of George Lucas and gives it a fleshed out backstory. You can also adopt a lot of the fictional backstory of Sithism from the Legends universe, canon universe, if you want to, or whatnot, and flesh out the religion's backstory. What you need to remember is this is one of at least two fantasy religions and based completely in science fiction fantasy religions that are Satanist. They are satanic, but based out of complete science fiction fantasy. You have Sithism, which is what we're talking about now, and then you have Cthulhianism, which is based off the writings of H.P. Lovecraft and his stories. And I'll get into that in another video. Really interesting stuff. If you're not, just touching really briefly on it, if you're not too familiar with it, go over and look up Venture Satanas online. He created a couple books based on Cthulhianism. He actually had a small organization for a time. It's now defunct, to the best of my knowledge, but his books are still up for sale. Liber.AO and Cthulhu Cult, which are books that talk about Cthulhianism. But if you go online, you look up the Dark Lords, Sith Academy, you'll find these guys have written a whole slew of books, alright? I have two of their books here, and they're interesting. I'm going to tell you this much. They are very interesting. You've heard me mention Sithism in previous videos, and now I'm touching on it. Now, when I said earlier, Sithism is one of those unique subcultures of Satanism that can fit in both the atheistic and the theistic version. What did I mean? Well, in that sense, I am actually referring to pre-1975 LaVeyanism, which is exactly what I am. Okay, I'm pre-1975 LaVeyan. That means I actually do believe in a very real Satan, but I also keep a very pragmatic mindset about it. And in Sithism, I approach it in the exact same way when I decide to get my geekdom on about it. So, how does this work? Well, as everybody knows, in Star Wars, it references the Force, which it is described by Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Episode 4, A New Hope, which was the original Star Wars movie. That was the one that started it all. He explains to Luke Skywalker that the Force is an energy field that goes through all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, and it's everywhere. It's all over the universe. And no matter where you go, the Force is ever present. Well, when you approach Satanism in the same thing, LaVey was quoted of believing that there was an actual Satan, in which I've talked about in some articles of mine that I am still going to be releasing. Um, but that Satan wasn't some anthropomorphic being unless you wanted him to be. This is you projecting your own personal insights and thoughts on the character of Satan. But Satan was more of a dark undercurrent of energy that runs through all things in life. Okay, it's a dark undercurrent of energy. You have a light current of energy and you have a dark undercurrent of energy. So this undercurrent, this dark undercurrent of energy is Satan, and it is this dark undercurrent of energy that is the dark side of the Force, which is what Sithism taps into, whereas Jediism would tap into the light side, the brighter things and the kinder things, keeping a mental balance, whereas Sithism tells you to tap into your emotions, use your anger as fuel to get you through certain situations, be it a hardship or a sports event or whatnot. All sorts of different things. It's very interesting. But it's also, Sithism is much more aggressive in its nature. Whatnot. Now, it doesn't tell you to go out and hurt people or anything like that. You're still expected to be a good member of society, just like any satanic religious outlook that is worth its horns. Um, you're going to still be a decent member of society that, participates, that influences, and does all sorts of things. So don't get me wrong there. But Sithism, just like Satanism, actually does believe both in the atheistic and the theistic elements. It fits into both. It believes in an actual energy field. And ironically enough, this is actually backed up by science. When we look, we have cameras. We actually have cameras that can pick up our aura. Okay? And what these auras that surround our bodies are is an electrical energy field. And we have these aural cameras that can pick up the colors of it and translate, and people actually read these. Excuse me. People actually read these auras, through these photographs, and it's a really fun thing to go check out. But it's also solid evidence of a very real energy field. Okay? We also have other cameras that actually pick up directly the electromagnetic energy field in real time. It's a video footage. I've actually seen some of these cameras in the Science Museum of Richmond, Virginia when I was a really little kid living down there. And I would love to go to the Science Museum down in Virginia, and because they would always have either this big pendulum in the main lobby or a giant T-Rex right there, and I love the dinosaur exhibits. But they had some really interesting stuff and other things, and I remember my class, we would go and see the rainforest IMAX video where it was this big theater type thing, and it made it look like you were flying over the rainforest, and it was really, really, really cool. But they also, in this one area, you had cameras set up, and all the kids could stand around in front of them, and you had your FLIR cameras, which picked up your thermal image, your heat image, predator vision, as I like to call it. It's what they use in the movie Predator. And then you had another camera, which was really interesting, and it picked up your electromagnetic aura. Okay, this is the electromagnetic field that comes off of your body and whatnot. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of science that's going into it. There's cameras now that can show that these auras do connect with each other, even across a room. So, like when you're walking down the street or something, and suddenly you get the hairs standing up on the back of your neck, and you feel like you're being watched, and you turn around, and you don't see anybody. It might actually be something watching you, and what you're feeling is the connection of their aura being projected out somehow and making a connection with your aura, and your aura is giving you this little spidey sense that, hey, I'm being watched. Or another thing is, like, just before something happens, you get the tingling sensation, turn around or whatnot and take a look at, what's behind you. Boom. You don't hear anything, but you get this notion. That's your electromagnetic aura giving you this alert. Your body is sensing it. Going further into various other fields of Satanism, vampirism is another type of Satanism with historical contents and fictional context. But psychic vampirism, which is the big thing in vampirism in the occult, talks about feeding off of this same electromagnetic field. So it can be diminished down by certain people who can siphon a little bit away to replenish theirs, or what, for whatever reason. So that's the electromagnetic field right there. And there is evidence that shows that sorcery, magic, actual magic, stuff that's performed like on an altar right here or whatnot, takes, especially ritual magic, takes that aural field of an individual or of a group of people focused directly on one specific goal. And it actually puts the energy of that aura, of that electromagnetic field, towards a specific target. And this is all, this may sound like fiction or whatnot, but no, it's actual science, and it's an actual explanation of how magic works. Now, it doesn't change the principles of how you utilize magic, and it doesn't change the principles of how you would approach something like Sithism or even actual Satanism, okay? What it does do is it explains on how both Sithism and Satanism and other forms of magic in general approach their witchcraft and approach actually manipulating things through ritual and through magic. I should have grabbed a drink of water, but oh well. Moving on. So that is the explanation there. What's really interesting is Sithism is complete fiction. There is no historical context to the actual Sith. And they were created by George Lucas as a villain medium for his space opera Star Wars. But Star Wars has become so beloved and expanded all over the globe and whatnot, and with hordes upon hordes of fans, that it really has taken off. And it's really no surprise that somebody turned around and created an actual religion based off of his concepts and his notions. If there ever was a pair of religions that could be based from fiction and translated into real life, Jediism and Sithism are them. Okay? Because the notions that Lucas came up with was very rudimentary and very simple. And so they translated beautifully from the silver screen and from the pages of fantasy books to real life. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to be able to do force pushes or any of that other stuff. No, that is complete fantasy. But the meditation principles, the martial arts principles, the philosophy behind it can help motivate a person in life. And that is the notion not only behind Sithism, which is a fantasy religion itself, or a subculture religion, but Satanism. It is the philosophies of these religions and how we utilize these philosophies to help guide us through life that makes them so unique. And it makes practicing something like Sithism, which it takes, if you're a Star Wars fan, it takes your fantasy and your love of the movies, and it enables you to just enjoy them that little bit more in real life. I would implore anybody who is wanting to practice Sithism or look into Sithism, make sure you can differentiate real life from fantasy. I know that there's a bunch of people out there who cannot do that. Okay, this is fiction. Okay, you're not going to go out there with a lightsaber and deflect bullets or laser blasts or anything. You're not going to be able to move objects with your mind or whatnot. No. Okay. You can approach craft rituals and whatnot for your own personal religious belief. You can sit down in a dark corner or whatnot and practice meditation and focus on your own inner self and focus on harnessing your own passions and your anger and whatnot to improve the quality of your life. Okay? You can do all that, but never forget this is fantasy. Okay? It is a religion based from a fantasy, and you need to never forget that the religious philosophy can help you in the real world, but you're not going to be going out there like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, or anything else and really be doing this stuff. Okay? And that's something that I implore everybody to understand before approaching a religion based off of a fictional thing. Okay? Sithism is a variant form of Satanism. Okay, so before you even get into Sithism, I will always encourage everybody, before you read these, read this. Okay? This is critical, and from here you can branch into whatever form of Satanism you want to. Some of these other forms of Satanism I will be covering in future episodes. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. Is this something that you'd be very curious to take a further look into? If so, tell me why. I mean, are you a fan of Star Wars? What do you think of the new movies? I mean, everybody knows my personal opinion on them, but I'd like to hear your personal opinion. And tell me what do you think of an actual religion being based off of George Lucas's movies and his, fantasy world. And the fact that there's two actual religions based off of it that counterbalance each other. That's very interesting. So, tell me what you think. We also have a large lightsaber community now, where people actually go out with some of these custom combat sabers, and they actually go out and duel and have fun and whatnot. Tell me how you would apply this your actual religious beliefs, be it Jediism or Sithism, to such a sports combat or a combat sport. That would be really interesting. As usual, folks, please leave a comment and your thoughts down below. Please be respectful when you do so. That's about the only thing I ask. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Don't forget to click that bell notification. That way you know whenever I'm putting up another video. And I will see you guys later. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Hail Satan. And I am out of here.